Hi there, my name is Nicholas, CMO and growth lover at Upthrust. You're listening to Rocket Talks. This is the podcast where I talk to marketing leaders and growth experts to fuel your next marketing campaign.
How did you get those first 100 users?
I sometimes wonder how we did. I have too much time, so I work for two companies. Having an idea, everybody can do it. I have this amount of money and I need your help. Can do whatever we want. It made us win the HR Excellence Awards of 2021 as well. People weren't really satisfied.
I don't believe in Instagram. And then I tell them why do you think that they scroll when they're on the toilets?
So we had a limited budget. I think it was 1,500 euros or something. If you're going on a first date, you're not asking to get married.
Exactly.
I think 3 days or something, we had 80,000 views.
It reminds me a bit of how Airbnb started out, right?
Always a matter of message, audience, and channels.
Welcome to our next episode of Rocket Talks. Today I have here Jonas Pollet from Partena and Deskalot. Welcome, Jonas. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
So maybe first of all for our listeners, because I introduced you as Jonas from Partena and Deskalot, can you maybe tell us a bit about yourself? Who are you and why do I need to mention these two companies?
First of all, I have too much time, so I work for two companies. No, I'm already working for 7 years now in innovation management within Partena Professional, as HR service provider in Belgium. And we provide services towards approximately 45,000 customers in Belgium doing payroll and everything connected to hard HR. Okay. And in that role, I'm looking for new markets, new products for existing markets, and also new markets for existing products. So that's my level of expertise. And in the development or in the feedback and the trends that we saw in 2021, I'm going back 2 years now. In 2021, we saw that there was a very big trend of teleworking because of the reason that we all know of. So everybody started working at home. People weren't really satisfied. They didn't have the facilities to work from home. HR in companies was looking for ways to explore or to facilitate that for their employees in order to gain in productivity or have a high productivity, but also the well-being aspect of working from home. Following that trend, we were looking for solutions to facilitate people to work from wherever they want, whenever they want. And we saw that there wasn't really a solution in the market in Belgium. So we developed it ourselves from ideation coming from that trend. And we started building an MVP, a prototype. We tested it a little bit on the market. And we saw that there was quite a good return on that idea, on that concept. That's when we really launched Deskalot.com, the company Deskalot.com. And there we made a growth to what it is today. A platform of 1,800 locations in 7 countries already, with a lot of users and a lot of possibilities and opportunities to grow even further.
Very impressive. We're going to talk a lot about the Deskalot growth story, but I first want to go back to the beginning. So you're running the innovation at Partena, which I think for most people from the outside, if you look at Partena, and I guess that maybe SD Works and stuff, they're also competitors to yours, right? They're considered as more like traditional classic companies who do boring stuff, if I can put it like that. How were you able to bring something so innovative in such a big corporate and do what you did with Deskalot?
That's a good question. I sometimes wonder how we did. It's a difficult one to answer as well, because I see that other companies aren't really doing it the same way as we do. And I think that there's no real straightforward answer to it. I can only testify on how we do it. And we focus on 3 main things. As the innovation department of Partena, we focus on the new products and services that don't exist yet in the market. So that's our core activity. We develop new products and we test them. And if they don't test, we also are not afraid to pull the plug if necessary. But it's like an experimental environment within Partena, but that's really well protected. So it's really aside from everything else. We can do whatever we want as long as we don't interfere with the current business lines that are structural, that are a little bit boring, as you said. But we are always trying to work around the core activities of the industry, of the activities of Partena. And in the same time, we are trying to do that separately from it. So it's always trying to find a balance, not to interfere with the current business lines, but also to be innovative and be like the little speedboat next to the container ship that is trying to move everything forward. We've put it in a separate entity, not a legal entity, but like in a separate department that is focusing transversal over the company, that is focusing on developing new products and services, main activity. We have a second responsibility as well, and that's the internal way of working. And we try to see how new technology and new products could serve our current business lines as well. Okay. And that's not the main part of what we do, because we really want to try to look outwards from the company, so inside out, and try to develop for the market. But in the same way, we have some innovation like evangelists in the company, where we have contacts on a monthly basis. We have an innovation forum with people from the business in order to spread the word, to spread new ideas, to gather new ideas and to be our voice of the market.
Yeah, because that was going to be my next question. You say like, nice, we can spread ideas and we can evangelize new technology. I guess generative AI is a big one that you're talking about within the organization. But what I like there is that you say we also use this forum to source ideas. Yeah. So am I correct in assuming that everyone who works in Partena, if they see this could actually be more efficient this way, they could push it to the innovation department? Or even one step further, this is not a service existing in the market and our clients might need it. Look into this. Is that what your guys are open for receiving?
Spot on. I must admit that we made a difference between process improvement and real innovation. Process improvement is more linked to the legacy systems, to the legacy business, and to everything that we already do. We try to focus that in a department that we call product management and delivery, because that's like incremental innovation. If process could be automized, could be optimized in ways of working, in using of technology, that's a department that's really focused on that, using robots or RPA technology, using AI, using chatbot technology in order to optimize the internal processes. Yeah, and that's process improvement. But if those guys, like everyone within Partena, has a good idea, then they come to the innovation cell. And then the innovation department, and then we look together. Are there other solutions? How is the problem fixed right now? What's the total addressable market? Is there a business case? Can we somewhat downsize it to an MVP and bootstrap the idea to see if it works in the market? If it doesn't work, then no harm is done. If it does work, then we can consider like real investments to see how we can go forward.
And the employee that came with the idea, can he still be somewhere within the process then when you're testing it out?
Yeah, they are crucial.
They are crucial.
Yeah, they are crucial to do it. We guide them and we help them in project management, in building business model canvases or lean startup or determining which sector or which segment to focus on, how they can make money, what the different revenue models could be. But in essence, those guys, they are entrepreneurs. Yeah. So they have to do it.
And what about their normal day-to-day job then? Do they get extra time to be innovative and do this innovation project? Or is it something that they have to do on top?
We always say that it depends on the business case. Okay. That's the political correct answer. Normally it comes on top and then you see real entrepreneurship. Because if they are really convinced about an idea, about a product, then they are willing to go that extra mile. Yeah. Even if it takes 2 hours more on your daily activities that you have to do it on the side. Of course, not for a year, not for 2 years, but for a limited amount of time. Then you see the entrepreneurs getting up in your organization. Because they are convinced about the idea, they want to go further. If they just want to work 9 to 5, give an idea and then expect somebody else to do it.
That's also fine.
That's also fine, but then it comes on the roadmap and on the backlog of innovation products. We always reconsider them every time that we are searching for new ideas. But you need that entrepreneur internally to really do it. and to do the business. My role is innovation manager, but actually, officially, it's innovation and implementation manager.
Yeah.
We always said that having an idea, everybody can do it. Because you can shit ideas like 20 a day. If you want. You have a good glass of wine, you sit and think, you read a book, and then you come out with 20 ideas.
Yes.
It's the doing that's the difficult part.
Exactly.
Having an idea and ideation is 10% of the work. Really doing it is 90% of the work. Oftenly underestimated how much you need to do to make it work.
Okay. What I also like that you said is that you guys in the innovation department, you can do whatever you want. So that as long as it doesn't interfere with the main business. So I guess then within your lab that you have there, you can experiment. And that I like that you say like we test it out, because that for me draws a big parallel to what we know in growth marketing, like the testing constantly on marketing channels and marketing messages and so on. So I assume that you do there a little test to do market validation. Do you do it with then a real audience? How does that work? How do you validate as quickly as possible if an idea, if an MVP, if it's feasible, and if you should make it bigger?
Yeah, the first part of the process, when we are constructing the business case, we always make assumptions.
Yeah, of course.
Reasonable assumptions. We put out a survey in the market, ask them what they think of it, if there's a willingness to buy as well.
And are you able at that point to leverage Partena's customer base?
Yes. Yes, okay. Which is a really important one.
That's very cool. Yeah.
That's a big value of being an innovation lab within a big corporate. You already have like a good base to start from and get all of the information.
Yes.
So during that process, we make assumptions, we do a survey, but there's a difference between the survey and the real life.
Of course, of course.
But if
people like to say what you want to hear, right?
Exactly. And also at the moment that they have to put their money where their mouth is, then the real work is done. But the thing is, if during that survey we get like good results, like a market interest of 30%, 40%, 60%, then we try to see how we can scope the MVP. And it's during that MVP that we really go to market in a very efficient and experimental way.
Okay.
And that's what we did, for example, with Deskalot as well. We first estimated the market. We were doing research, reading articles, and then we tried to make a big Excel to see if numbers added up.
Exactly. But is it financially interesting to roll this out?
But really testing it out is what you do in real time. It's when you go to the markets, it's when you're walking down the streets, it's when you try to convince people to buy your product.
Yeah.
And that's the experimental phase, and that's already actually the second market validation that we do at that time. It's a real market validation after the survey to test the concept.
Yeah, all right. That's a perfect segue to go to the Deskalot story, because this is something where I know Upthrust was also part of the story, where we helped you validate and grow it. Can you maybe tell us a bit about how did you get those first 100 users? Because for me, the 100 users mark is always a thing to celebrate. This is a bit of validation. This means real people want to use my app. Yeah. So how did you get to that point of the first 100 users?
To be honest, growth marketing wasn't something that I was familiar with at that time when we were starting. So it was all of a big experiment for myself as well. I learned a lot from it. I'm really grateful for that. It was some kind of, joyride where we set up front that we had validation criteria to attain within a month. So we had a limited budget. I think it was 1,500 euros or something. Not more than that. Because we wanted to experiment, So 1,500 euros. And we said, okay, we have to attain X amount of transactions on our platform, X amount of users, people putting up their locations for rent, but also X amount of transactions, people making a user on our platform, and also validation through buying through our platform.
Yeah, buying through your platform, you mean like booking a space for a day?
Exactly. We had some other criteria as well, but I don't know by heart anymore. When I approached Upthrust and I said, I have this amount of money and I need your help, Dennis at that time was scratching his head and he was like, okay, how can we do it? Because it's a really good story. And then we started experimenting. I remember the first experiment that we had, it was like on Facebook, you have these groups that you are from a certain city, and then ... I think we were with 4 or 5 people people, and we were from different regions in Flanders. And then we said, okay, I will take these regions and you will take these cities. And we all went requesting a login or requesting an access to that group. I'm from Bruges, if I. I'm from Ghent, if I. And then we started really like under the radar, like, have you already heard of this platform? I want to make some extra money. It seems good to see how this could work, but I don't trust it because it's new. And people started reacting on that. And within, I think, 3 days or something, we had 80,000 views.
Yeah. Okay.
80,000 views in let's say a week without spending anything on advertising.
Yeah.
So that was a big eye opener for me. And of course, during that first month, we did other iterations, other experiments, because every week we have the kill scale meeting, which I like as well. And in that kill scale meeting, we just scaled everything that worked. We killed everything that didn't work. So you don't lose a big amount of money and that you can still keep the speed of the experimentation going. And after a month, all of the criteria were met.
All right.
And even above that. Yeah.
So am I correct in assuming that with that Facebook Marketplace hack, you were already able to get your first 100 users?
Yes.
Was it?
Yeah. Within a week. Yeah.
Within a week?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you have some other cool tactics that you used in the beginning? Because this is very fun stuff to share.
Yeah, like the local ebay.com, we started posting locations there as well. So we said that they could rent offices, and if you're going to the local eBay, I don't know how it works, but
what is the local eBay?
Like tweedehands.
Tweedehands.
tweedehands.be. And then we went to that site and we started posting things, and we were having interactions as well. You could see every time that we launched an experiment that the number of users or the number of visits to our website grew. So that was a really interesting one as well.
I really like it because you went where your audience was already looking.
Yes.
It reminds me a bit of how Airbnb started out, right?
Exactly.
That they started to post those things on Craigslist and then they took that audience towards their app. So very smart they use these kind of these tactics. At which point did you go for paid acquisition channels? Because I think it's very smart that you use those organic ones in the beginning to validate, is there people that are interested? Do they want to use it? And only then open up like all those paid channels. But what was for you the trigger to use paid acquisition?
So after 1 month of validation, we met our criteria and we decided to go further. Not only technically with the platform, we built a totally new platform. Before that, it was plug and play platform because we were bootstrapping it.
Okay.
It had its limitations in payment methods, in the fact that it wasn't linked to calendars, other features that we heard from our users that would be interesting during that first month. We already got a lot of feedback from our users that X features would be interesting for that kind of user story. So we started really listing all of the requirements that we needed. We started building a new platform. After that month of validation, we also started investing in paid Google advertising, socials, a lot of social media, but also really B2C oriented. Which was new for Partena as well, being a B2B company. Because we were trying to convince people to work somewhere else. And so to put up their credit card, pay for a location, for a day, for an hour, for a half a day, but they still needed to do that themselves. And that's when it became real. You're starting to make real investments in new platforms and new acquisitions through advertising. And then when we made the pivot, like a year later, we made a pivot to B2B. And that's when we also started investing in people in B2B sales as well, which is a little bit more difficult than on the B2C acquisition, of course. And that's the story that we went through. We saw as well that we had the opportunity to lower our investments in advertising on social media when we made the pivot to B2B, because B2C is really intense if you're spending money. Because you just want to be top of mind of everybody through all channels. You need a lot of money, and it's cash burning for a startup, of course, because it doesn't add value. If you cannot convert them to or make the conversion to real users and paying users, then you're just burning money. When we went to the B2B, we could lower the B2C acquisition or advertisement, and then we could invest more on more expensive platforms, of course, like LinkedIn.
Yeah.
But to get a new audience of businesses, trying to convince them that the new way of working has finally arrived.
Okay, interesting. Couple of things that I want to jump on. You said that you did a pivot from the B2C market to the B2B market. What was for you the biggest trigger or the biggest realization? Man, we should focus on B2B and not on B2C. Yeah. What was that moment for you?
First, customer feedback.
Okay.
Our users, most of the times they were self-employed people, and they needed, they could afford themselves to work somewhere else. They paid with their company credit card that they owned themselves, of course.
Yeah.
And then in the accounting system, it goes, if you're trying to get that bigger market of employees, people on the payroll, and you want to convince them, they will not pull out a company credit card. They will not, pay for an advancement that they need to reimburse or get reimbursed through an expense note and the whole process that follows on that one. And that's when we saw that if we really wanted to scale in users, in number of users, that we needed to go to a bigger audience, being the businesses, trying to convince them to liberate their employees to work wherever they want. And then you have to acquire one customer who has maybe 5,000 employees.
Yeah, of course.
So your growth is much stronger and much faster.
Okay, interesting. What was for you the biggest difference in doing marketing in a B2C market and a B2B market? I heard you say already, we had some more money to spend on LinkedIn, which of course, to all people listening to this podcast, LinkedIn should be top of mind when you do B2B marketing. But I also imagine that your kind of value proposition or your messaging, it also changes when you change markets.
Yeah.
What was for you the biggest difference between doing B2C marketing and B2B marketing for essentially the same kind of product?
The value proposition was still the same. We offer office space and professional spaces.
Yeah.
The message and the audience changed. We always said that it's always a matter of message, audience, and channels.
Yeah.
And the channels, LinkedIn, of course, the message changed to convince people to work somewhere else. But not only themselves, but especially their employees. So the message changed from A to Z, because you couldn't have a bigger difference. When you're focusing on consumers, you're focusing on freedom, working in a good environment, a professional environment, and not from your table at home. When you're trying to convince CHROs, HRDs, or even CEOs that they need to install a culture of freedom, that they need to install a culture of teleworking, of home working, or alternatives from home working. Also, our audience changed a lot, because then we have message channel. Our audience changed a lot. We were in a triangle of facility management, finance, and HR.
Yeah.
And that was a big change for us as well, because
these three audiences, did they have separate messaging?
Yes, because you try to convince the facility manager to lower his fixed costs on office space by shrinking their current office space and making it more flexible, so he can manage it more from a distance and lower his fixed costs to lower amounts. You're trying to convince the CFO to change fixed costs in variable costing and give freedom or give extra money to people so they can use it, or liberate budgets so they can start using it. And you're trying to convince HR people that the new way of working is there, that the space, the workspace is adapting to the kind of work that they need to perform, and not only the office that is determining the work that somebody is supposed to do. So it's a really big change. Also, the HR part, you had or the facilities part, you're not only talking about businesses or buildings in our business model, but you're also talking about everything that's sustainability. Coming to the office is a big one as well, with the company cars, trains, or whatever. Well, if you could give an alternative so people don't have to come to the office anymore, but they cannot stay at home because it's not possible, or they don't want to, or they don't want to miss the link with the office and the colleagues, then you try to convince them, of course, about sustainable alternatives for putting your people on the road.
Yeah. What I like there is that you really try to take the conversation to another level.
Yeah.
That you're not just saying, we have this space. No. It fits in this bigger thing that you want to achieve. So that I think is really, really nice that you did there. Did you have the feeling that you needed to educate your target audience on these kind of things?
Yeah. Yes, we did. Teleworking and home working, we've all been doing it since March 2020. And a lot of it was already like arranged in a couple of weeks because we had no other choice. So people were working from home at that time. But a year later, we saw that we were still like in the third wave of the pandemic.
Yeah.
We saw that organizations were thinking, okay, this is something serious, but it works. So maybe we need to do something with it, like structurally.
Yeah.
So they all started negotiating with unions on collective bargain agreements and a policy of teleworking within the companies. And then you're starting to educate your audiences as well, because you're helping them in something that is not completely new, that they already tested out themselves, but they don't really have a sustainable solution or alternative. Yeah. Everybody was thinking at that time that everybody would come home or could go back to the office afterwards. But then it all started with, yes, but will we take 60% in the office and 40% at home, or 60% at home and 40% in the office? Will we need to pay some allowances when they work from home because they are making costs at that time? Then we added an extra layer of complexity, because we said, well, the 60 and the 40%, it's not even a discussion, because you can have the extremes of the paradigm and saying, okay, you can work from home, you can work from the office, and everything in between now opens up as well.
Yeah. Am I right in assuming that you were very well positioned, being that you have Partena behind you, that could also answer those bigger questions like, okay, what about the allowances? What about this? What about that? Because I guess that are questions that entrepreneurs otherwise would ask to Partena.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So there you really see how that innovational product that you had there might seem like a standalone product, but it's actually a very smart innovation that helps the bigger business as well.
Exactly. We saw, and that was the transition that teleworking made from being a facilities subject to being an HR subject.
Yeah.
And in that transition, we surfed on the wave of, okay, we can do the compliancy things with all of our lawyers that we have available. All of your questions that you have connected to payrolling, we answer them on a daily basis. But hey, we have something new here as well.
Yeah, very smart. Very smart.
What do you think? Yeah.
Nice. We already talked a bit about the B2C tactics that you used in the beginning. Let's talk about B2B tactics.
Yes.
You already mentioned we did some LinkedIn, which was very expensive. I assume you talking about LinkedIn ads.
Yeah.
Can you talk a bit more about your marketing mix, the kind of experiments you did to get B2B people into your platform?
We were still focusing multi-channel, so we didn't give up on the other social medias, because it was really good to be top of mind.
Okay, so you're also still using Facebook ads, so Meta ads,
yes,
to try to convince B2B stakeholders.
Yes, and because those people are there as well.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I try to say. Everyone, when we do B2B campaigns, they're like, yeah, no, I don't believe in Instagram, and then I tell them like, yeah, why do you think that they scroll when they're on the toilets?
Yeah, exactly, or read while they're waiting for an airplane or between meetings.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So but continue.
Yes. So multi-channel was always there. LinkedIn was more expensive than as a platform than Meta, because the cost per click is just higher in that kind of audience. So multi-channel was always on, and then we did some experimentations as well, like targeted mailings.
Physical mailings?
No.
Emails.
Okay. Emails. Targeted emailing, but with certain messages. We also set up some calculators to convince people how to reduce office space costs, and then make a calculation if they make it with, or if they combine it with the teleworking policy of 20, 40, 60% of teleworking.
Okay, nice, because I really like always that idea of engineering as marketing, building something. But then the more difficult part is, how do you get people towards that calculator? Because everyone can build a calculator, but not everyone can get traffic towards our calculator. How did you do that?
Well, first we have an audience of Partena that was a very useful audience, of course, or that was a very grateful audience to use. But also through LinkedIn and through multi-channel approaches, and trying to convince them with simple wording. how much does your office space cost? Calculated here. How much do you want to save on office costs? Calculated here.
Yeah.
We also tried to convince people, okay, get 1 month for free, and we did like some gamification of the concept as well.
Okay.
I think that was the biggest approach, or those were the most successful approaches that we did. We were writing white papers as well.
Was that successful?
Actually not. Less successful than we thought. We assumed that it would be successful, and it's always very expensive to make a white paper, but it was less successful than we thought. And I think it had something to do with the content of the white paper. Because there was a lot of competition at that time that was working on the words of teleworking, your new office space, new way of working, the new normal. So you had a lot of competition, and people were just fed up with it. The message wasn't making any sense anymore. But if you're, of course, writing a white paper, it takes some time. And then when you finalize that white paper and you get to the end of the white paper, then something becomes maybe already irrelevant or too top of mind with everybody. You can surf on it, but the white paper itself wasn't that successful in conversion rates.
I hear you say we had these free trials, so then 1 month. We had this calculator. We had then people having to use the application. So if I look at it through my growth marketing lens, I see you have stuff in different phases of the funnel.
Yeah.
You have stuff for people top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, and bottom of the funnel. Then let's go to the top of the funnel, like calculator, very beautiful thing, top of the funnel, because they just want to know, is this a solution that could actually save me money? Did you also use this top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel approach in your marketing efforts? Like if you send out a first email to me, for example, never heard of Deskalot, would you first try to push me to use the calculator to experience myself that this is actually something valuable for me? Or would you immediately try to push me towards a platform to use it?
No. And I was planning that. And somebody said to me, and I still remember his words, if you're going on a first date, you're not asking to get married.
Exactly.
And that was one of the biggest lessons. You need to, get the loving going, use your charm to try to convince them. And also the data that you already collect in that stage is, even if they don't convert to direct users, it's still useful and it's still very valuable to use in a later stage of the funnels. And the bottom of the funnel, we also used referrals, and that helped a lot in B2B context. Because then you can make references to other companies already making that transition. Okay. And if you have like really sounding names, that really good things going, then that helps as well. It made us win the HR Excellence Awards of 2021 as well.
Nice, congratulations again on that. Referral, interesting that you say that, because referral, when I talk about growth marketing, referral, people always think about the things that Uber Eats does, that you can invite other people, or HelloFresh, that you have this card that you can give to your friends so they can get a free box. Very typical B2C examples. People often don't believe that referral works in B2B. I do believe that it works in B2B. You clearly believe it works as well. Could you maybe, for our listeners, give a bit of an idea of a referral tactic that you could use that works really well in a B2B context?
Yeah.
While still balancing the ethical aspect, because that is sometimes in bigger companies a bit of a difficult one. So do you have something that you can share?
Yeah, the ethical aspect was very important because you don't want to give cash, of course, or you don't want to give something of a monetary value, because then you are in the gray zone, my opinion.
Exactly.
So we were giving something for free, like work 1 day and take a friend for free. Or here you have 10 vouchers because you're such a good customer. You can spread them out amongst everybody that you want. We also started a lot of pilots with our users as well, with our B2B users. And we always said, okay, the first 10 bookings are on our costs, and the rest you can see what it does for your use. You can see what the adoption rate is within the company. And then you can try to convince them as well. So if we did referral, it was all mainly focused on the usage within the company itself.
Okay.
So there you don't really have that ethical boundary.
No.
If you want to really elaborate or get larger in your audiences as well, we try to convince them using 1 + 1 for free. So you don't stay in the same company.
Okay. I heard you say that it's also very easy. It's something extra that when you go to another customer that you can say these and these companies are already using Deskalot. For me, that's also referral, of course, because you're leveraging your current customers to get in new ones. Did you do something with like testimonials with them, making case studies of them that you then send out to their competitors? Is that something that you guys were doing as well?
Yes. I got a big tip, and I think it was from you, to always structure the email in the same order, and then you use always a referral in the same industry, in the same region, in the same growth stage of a certain company. If they are a scale up, if you approach them differently than a startup, of course. And the structure of the email was always, dear X, we saw that in your industry there are these kind of challenges. We helped this company with that challenge. These were the results. Are you interested in a free 15-minute call so I can explain to you what we did there?
Exactly.
And that was the structure that we always used, and it was very successful.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. Refer to something that they can, that they can see that it works.
Yeah.
That you can have a name of a company that they know and that they know of that is being a reference in the market as well. And then really attack the problems or the challenges that they have.
You shift the conversation. Yeah. It's not that like, okay, Jonas, I want you to sign up for my product. You need to give me all your info. It's, Jonas, I want to give you insights on what your competitors are doing to fix the problems that you have.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's indeed. Okay, very cool. What's next for Deskalot? How does the future for Deskalot look like? What can you share about the future?
I must be honest, I cannot share 100% of the story,
yes, of
but
course.
I can tell you that we are looking for geographical expansion, because we need, in our business model, you need a lot of people using your platform in order to be profitable at a certain point. And also the investments that we made in the platform, if you can, spread the costs over a bigger amount of users, then the cost of your platform or your investments that you made stay the same. Also, you'll always have incremental development, of course, but we are looking for geographical expansion, and we are going abroad. We're already in seven countries, but we are planning, I think I can say that, to be a pan-European player.
Okay, yeah. Wow, nice. And if you're testing out these new markets, you then always adapt the same mindset of we want to test, we want to validate our message, our target audience. That stays embedded in the way of working.
Yes, and that's the most important thing as well that we learned, because the first step that we said that we took after developing Belgium, we went to the Dutch market.
Yeah.
And we saw that culture is very different. Digital adoption is crazy. You just put something online, you twist your button of the ad spend that you were doing, and people are downloading your app, they are using it, they are giving you direct feedback. So no blockage or no blockings whatsoever. Here in Belgium, it's more of a traditional market, where you have to convince people into using it, give them videos on how to use the platform, try to explain how it should work. The Dutch people, they are really fast at it and really good at it. So that was a very, very good market to go through.
How did you find out that they were so different?
We didn't. We didn't knew it up front, of course. But it was always like a gut feeling that we had in digitalization, in digital applications, that the Dutch are way more than us looking forward to new applications. And we tested that as well. Is it okay to only use digital channels, or do we need feet on the ground there as well? Do we need boots on the ground to knock on doors and to convince people to come over? That experiment directly showed that digital marketing was really a good way or a good approach. And in every country that we launched now, we always applied the same strategy. Like wave one was try to convince people to put on their locations, because if you don't have locations, you cannot convince people to book the locations, of course. So we need to convince them. And then it helped being a big corporate and stating that you were part of a big corporate, but that you're working already in Belgium with X amount of users. So that part was easy. The second wave was, of course, try to convince B2C audiences to come to the platform. So we can say, okay, we already have a decent user base in that country on a B2C level, and the B2B, that was something that we needed boots on the ground for. We needed to convince them.
That's interesting. Even though in Belgium you identified we're going to pivot from B2C to B2B focus.
Yeah.
Once you start a new market, you go B2C first because you want to prove to the owners there is interest, there is people that want to actually come.
Yeah. If you don't, we needed locations, and those locations weren't ours. So we needed to convince them to come on our platform.
Yeah.
First thing
stay on your platform.
And stay on our platform. First thing that they asked was how many users do you have here? So if you're trying to convince B2B, then your sales course or
the sales cycle is way longer.
The sales cycle is way longer, and you cannot convince them because you don't have locations.
Yeah.
So you really need to attack the host side and the guest side in a B2C environment.
Yeah.
Just to convince the hosts to stay on your platform as well.
Yeah.
If they are on it and within 2 months they don't have any bookings yet, then they just go out again.
Yeah.
And especially in the Dutch market where everything is really quickly. So that was one of the biggest learnings that we had. Also the cultural differences, not only in user adoption and digital adoption, but if we compare it to France or to Germany, the culture of the companies, the cultures of working, of teleworking, is way different. Where in France you have bigger cities like Paris, Marseille, Lyon, Nantes, but in between there's nothing, well, almost nothing. Belgium is very condensed and all over the place. The Netherlands, you have the square of Amsterdam, Utrecht, Rotterdam, and Den Haag. And besides that, it's already good, but not really that big of an industry. And in Germany, you have very big differences between Hamburg, Munich, and Berlin.
Okay. All right. We looked a bit at the future. Looking back, what would you have done differently?
I would have maybe the pivot to B2B. That was something that we did too late, I think.
Okay.
Because we saw that it really went good, and that adoption rate was really good. If I now look in hindsight, I would have shifted it faster.
Yeah.
International expansion, because we needed that market. We needed that big amount of users, or we need that big amount of users. And then you don't have to develop it only in Belgium, where we have the difficulties of 3 languages. It's a stupid thing, but if you have to translate your platform for a country of 11 million people, or you are focusing on an English market in the US, for example, that is only speaking English with 300 million users, that's a difficulty that we came across. So international expansion and only the international view was necessary. I think I would have invested even more in people, because we did it like bootstrapped with flexible forces and flexible help. But people are a valuable asset of everything that we do, and especially the boots on the ground in the different countries, because in the beginning you do it all yourself, You're a startup, you're a scale up, you get in the car at 4 a.m. to have a meeting at 8 in Amsterdam and then be home at 11, but it's not sustainable. You need those local people to give the services to your users.
Yeah,
so
all right.
Those are 3 big learnings that we did.
Okay. Some interesting things you said there. First of all is the dare to kill your darlings.
Yeah.
A lot of startup founders or company like entrepreneurs, they build something, they're incredibly proud and they're in love with their product, but you need to dare to say, okay, let's try something else. Let's go for another market. So I heard that story over and over again. I made the same mistake myself. I first made an app for B2C users to then find out that they're not willing to pay. So we did the pivot to B2B. It was also way too late. We should have done it in the beginning. But in hindsight, it's easy to say this kind of stuff, of course. And then the final thing you said is that you wanted to invest more in people. That's an interesting topic that we're also making a lot of content at Upthrust is who are these people that you need to hire? Because I could imagine that a marketer or a go-to-market person that you hire in Partena, just the normal organization, looks completely different than the first marketeer or go-to-marketeer that you hire in if I can call it a startup within that organization that needs to do almost everything.
Yeah.
How do you decide which kind of person do I need? What are the main qualities that person needs?
Being an entrepreneur in that spin-off, you need somebody that is standing next to you, that is willing to do everything at once, not really focused on one domain, like I'm only doing HR, I'm only doing marketing, I'm only doing sales, I'm only doing customer service. No, you need the first profiles that you need are people that are doing or willing to do everything.
Yeah.
You can still specialize or focus on certain domains, but if a customer is calling and you're doing HR, then you need to still answer the phone and help that customer.
Yeah.
Customer centricity is main in that thing. Because you're growing and those are the guys that are paying your sandwiches on the end of the month. I think people who know how to act when they're supposed to act and that you can trust as well.
Yeah.
That you give them freedom but you also give them responsibilities.
Yeah, definitely.
And if they can handle that, then they are of immense value to your startup or company.
Yeah. I think trust is such an important one in that because they need to. You don't know even what they need to do, right?
No.
You're
everything.
You're on that rocket ship, you're going somewhere, but I don't know which challenges that will arise. But if you can trust that person that he will handle in a way as if it was his own company and that he would solve it correctly, that will be, that's the kind of people you need. But if you would, let's zoom in specifically, you need to hire a marketer. You need to hire a go-to-market marketer. What kind of person in skills-wise do you look for?
Because we are a digital platform, a digital marketer with growth hacking skills. That's I think before we started this venture, we were focusing on classic marketing, emailings, newsletters, trying to convince people to subscribe. The growth that we had with Deskalot, that we had thanks to growth marketing techniques, and the willingness to experiment, but also kill your babies. That's what you need. People that are focusing on the classical marketing, I think you can convert them to really digital good ones and growth hackers. But I think there's like something in those growth hacking people that will not serve to do the classical marketing. The growth hacking is especially in a spin-off, especially in a startup, but we are now testing as well on other audiences within Partena Professional as well, or other techniques of doing marketing within Partena Professional as well. And then you need people with that kind of skills, that kind of competences.
Yeah, and I guess mindset is a super important one.
Exactly.
One final question on that. What do you think about the importance of copywriting for a marketer? Undervalued or overvalued?
Are you asking my honest opinion?
Honest opinion.
Sometimes I wonder how copywriters are making their money, actually. No, not copywriters. not copyright. Content creators.
Yes.
It's a job that I don't understand, to be honest. It's of high value, but you give them so you ask them something, and a week later they come up with I don't know where it comes from. I don't know I don't know how they made it, but they come up something with value. Of course, in the transition towards generative AI and the use of generative AI, especially in marketing, we see that copywriting or content creating is of course done in a totally different way now. Yeah. And that is maybe under stress for some people that are only focusing on the storytelling side. But I think if you can mix it with content generation and with like a firm strategy on what that content needs to have to be good, to address a certain audience and address a certain market, I think that value is still there. Yeah. The writing of the text and maybe editing of the text, that I think that will be the main value nowadays for content marketers, is the editing of or for copywriters is the editing of the copy, not really writing it themselves anymore.
Yeah, because you have generative AI to step in there.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's really good, but you need, of course, people to write prompts and to do great prompting is a new skill set that is of high value.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Jonas, then I would really like to thank you for this super interesting conversation. If I summarize it, in the beginning, you really went for organic channels. You tried out a lot of different experiments. You went Facebook Marketplace. You validated with a first version of your application that was actually not what it is right now. It's just something that was quickly built to validate and see, is this working? It worked. You then went to the next phase, put on some paid acquisition, got people on your platform. You got a lot of user feedback. People were talking to you, were saying, we need this feature, this feature, this feature. So you went and built something based on user feedback, not what you guys thought in the boardroom that needed to be built, but you built what people actually asked. And then you saw people actually need it in a B2B context. They want other people that need to make a decision. So you did the pivot towards B2B. You then also realized, oh, my messaging needs to be different. So you then identified your main stakeholders. You changed your channel's messaging, and this target audience that you wanted to target went for B2B, and then saw really beautiful growth for Deskalot in those segments. Is that a good summary of the story and the growth that you guys went through?
That's a perfect summary.
All right.
And maybe some nice to have. The short development that we had was 2 weeks. So we built the first initial platform in 2 weeks.
Wow. Yeah, because often you hear these innovation projects, they take years and it costs so much money, but actually it can be done in a completely different way.
Yeah, it can.
All right. Thank you so much. I'm pretty sure this was a super interesting episode for all our listeners. If they have any questions for you, Jonas, is there a way that they can reach you on LinkedIn or something?
Yes, they can always add me on LinkedIn, contact me. I'm happy to share my experiences with everybody.
All right, perfect. Thank you all for listening, and definitely tune in for our next episodes because we have some great guests coming up. Thank you, and see you in the next episode.